What's going on, everybody? This is the Blockchain Backer, bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we're taking a look over here at the Bitcoin price chart and the altcoin market as we have finally gotten some action out of here from Bitcoin. After being stuck in this range for 20 days, we finally have a break of the range. So I figured, hey, we already did like 38 videos about worrying about the top of this range area and discussing how these things tend to go. Well, you know what? We finally have some movement happening in here. And well, that's really what I think is happening in here. We spent several weeks talking about this like 18,300 level down in here. And the most common thing to see is just kind of an A, B, C that emerges in here. And these things could drag on for some time. Things have moved pretty fast in the last day. So we've talked about this in live streams too, that, you know, eventually these things can then just kind of go sideways for a while before finally then there's the next one that gets you down there. And then off and away you can go. Now, one thing to note, though, that we've looked at several of these before, and this is kind of just how these endings end up happening in here, is that same level, like if we're looking at the inverse price chart of Bitcoin from late 2021 or early 2022, we wouldn't have gotten that far. The logic says that would be a reasonable distance. It's into your retracement levels, gets you down to 702 retracement there at about 18.3. But even in this one, we didn't go as far, right? Where did this actually collide with in here? I'll switch this to the daily time frame. That one collided with the 200-day moving average, and that ended up being it. So looking at where the 200 is right now, it's still a little ways down. Notice though, even in the initial fall of A down in there, didn't even quite get there, and back up. And then in for C to hit it. I would love to say there's like a perfect formula for this and to say like each time these things happen, this is where they typically go. Back here, it only went to like a 382 retracement. So right now, it's as if it would be coming to a stopping point already. Then waddle up and then waddle down when that collision comes in there. If there was like an absolute consistency to how those things looked in there, I'd say these are the ones that are most consistent, but there's just not. What's consistent is some type of an ABC. The depth of where they go to is the part that's not consistent. So, you know, we'll get them here. We'll get them here. Right here, we get past 618. Bitcoin's bottom in 2018 and 2019. We get all the way past all of them, nipping just past the 0.786. And then like we saw in 2021, 2022, all we saw was pulling back to 382, never quite getting all the way down there. So essentially the idea of reversal structures, what we've talked about for the last month, has been this is all good, right? We were looking for breakout. We got the breakout. This is typically where the resistance comes in. Then you've got to ABC your way in here. The ABC does not consistently have a Fibonacci retracement level that it pulls down to in here. What is consistent is that we usually see ABC. It should be pretty clear when we start to see it, so long as this was what we're doing. But in these reversals, there's no tried and true formula for the depth at which it goes. So the things I'll be watching for Bitcoin in regards to a pullback happening in here are going to be, hey, one, the 200-day moving average. The last time we had this play out, that was what mattered, was the 200-day moving average. However, that's not really like my go-to number right in there. I mean, that gets you to about a 50% retracement in here if we go down that depth. So we do have kind of like a number that would satisfy a retracement. But you know me, my go-to 702. So really the number I am looking for is 18.3. But if we were to see something similar to like what we saw happen last time, it'd be like some support coming in here pretty soon, working our way back up to about 22.9 and then rolling over, heading down to eventually collide with that 200-day moving average and just past the 382, which occurs right around 20,600, 20,700. So if we start to see something to kind of turn its way up and like several weeks start to pass by and we're still hovering here, you know, it opens up the door for that. But so if we were to repeat something like that, you'd be looking closer to about 20,600. If you look at the other examples we looked at, looking at like the 618 retracement, it's at about 18,800. The 702 sits there at 18,300, and then the 786 all the way down there at 17,400. Of course, when you say all those different numbers, what are you opening yourself up to? You're opening yourself up to saying, hey, I pick that whole zone as being the bottom. That doesn't do any good to have any type of bias towards that. but I'll show you the ones that have happened, right? The 200-day moving average being the one to end up catching it. We saw examples of it stopping at the 618, saw examples of it stopping at the 786. You guys know it. I show it in every single live stream, how I'm always looking at the 702 retracement. That's always my go-to. That's always the guess I'm always going to take. I'm always going to guess the 702, and that would be 18.3. So that's where I narrow myself down to for my guess, is down in that box way down there. That, of course, would have to get past the 200-day moving average, past the 382, past the 618, right into there. But if this is all true, if this is how this will all play out, we're a long ways from there. Something like this would likely take several months to play out. Enough time to wash away all the optimism, like we've talked about before, that you get down here again. I've gone through my emotional log, my emotional journal. I have emotional logs of like when this moment happened for Bitcoin right down here in 2019. It was full of doubt. Nobody really trusted it. There was some stuff that was popping up huge. You see daily candles on stuff with 30, 40, 50%. Like we've just been seeing. We've seen some stuff really cranking it out. Then you go into my emotional journal and you start reading the stuff down in here. Oh boy. Mr. Doomer comes right back. And so if that's the case, it's just kind of getting ready for that emotional preparedness that, hey, if that's what's the journey is coming, everything you saw down in here, all that worry after that FTX stuff, that sentiment that was just garbage down in here saying we're going to 12K, they will be back. But one thing you can even notice in there is that there was a trick and then it reversed its way back up right in there, right? So you see that, and then notice what came next. One more push up before then the bottom fell out of it. So there could be some trickery that happens in here. But I think we got another clue in here over the last 2 days that, we might be in here for a minute. And speaking of that trickery, we even saw that in there too. Took one more stab at it. Like stabbing and then whoop. But we've unquestionably seen that this thing has completely stalled out right here. Look at the daily momentum oscillators, the strength indicators. Everything is really rolled over here. MACD's crosses, stock RSI, everything has gone down. So the momentum of this entire swing, it has stalled. But this also goes back to things like we talked about with Solana, that Solana was reaching that moment of where this is where they tend to run out of juice at. But I think what would be interesting over the coming days and throughout the weekend, I'll be keeping my eye on for sure, is just, with the altcoin market, because the altcoin market's already gotten back. It's right near, it's not quite there, but it got real close to getting back to the 200-day moving average. We've seen several coins pop, but we haven't seen the whole market really pop yet. And while yesterday, when the news of the SEC and Kraken came out, man, I immediately saw the $12,000 calls come out on Twitter. So will the market be able to sniff it out? That we're actually just in a consolidation phase now before the market steps up again for Bitcoin. But we see the boredom set in for Bitcoin and see this thing catch a bounce right off of there. Like I've said, I believe this to be Wyckoff accumulation, and we're working on the sign of strength phase here for the altcoin market. And so in our sign of strength phase, it just takes a while to work through these things in here before we can get our way out. But it's real funny here, even when we look at Jim Forte's write-up in here, on the different phases in these. Look at the crashing structure happening in here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rolls back up to wave 4 within wave 5, and then wham, 7 happens in here, right? Then rolls back up, and then look real closely. What do you see here? You see A, B, C happening here, like we're talking about with Bitcoin, right? So you can kind of see the logic of how that works in here, right? What we're talking about moving to ABC, even when we look at the anatomy of a trading range. That notice where we arrive to, right? You're not able to break above here. Comes up short, followed by an ABC, which is what we're talking about, and which is what we normally see, and we've even seen over here in Bitcoin twice, right? Back to the ABC, just like in the anatomy of a training range, right? Not able to get as high, ABC, and then gone. Not able to get as high over here, ABC, and then gone. Not able to get as high in here, speculation, ABC, then gone. Which is also what we've talked about over here on XRP. Not able to get as high, ABC, and then gone. And it's crazy to see this, that I'm seeing this here in the anatomy of a trading range for the very first time. This is something that I've noticed 100 times. I've talked about it on my channel, and here it is. We're actually seeing it right here in totally different wording here in the anatomy of a trading range by Jim Forte in 1994. And what's amazing about this is for those who were here when the top of Bitcoin came in 2021, we talked about the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rolling back up to wave 4 within wave 5, and that we would barely set a new high. And I was trying to show it to the channel over and over again from the inverse perspective, saying that we would set a new high, but just barely. because we were always looking at the chart in this manner. We were looking at it upside down, and I was trying to present the case. Hey, look, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rolled back up to wave 4 within wave 5. We'll go on. We'll set a new low on the inverse price chart, but we'll do it just barely, which is precisely what happens in the anatomy of a trading range and distribution, right? And so I've gone through this document before. I don't ever recall seeing this, but it has to have been there the whole time. But my mind is literally getting blown as I'm recording this video because we talk about this so much. And I have all these different phases that I talk about that I've discovered on my own. And we're seeing them corroborated here in the Anatomy of a Trading Range by Jim Forte in 1994. And while he isn't labeling these phases in the same way that I do, it's the same stuff. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, rolls back up to wave 4 within wave 5, goes on and sets the new low just barely, as we anticipated for Bitcoin to just barely, heads all the way back up, not quite taking out the height over here, heads all the way back up, not quite taking out the height over here. Then what do we get? We get ABC, which is what we get in the Anatomy of a Trading Range, ABC. And of course, for those not understanding what we're doing, right? It's this, right? It's the top of Bitcoin, but we recognize the anatomy of the trading range happening there from the top. And I officially don't feel so crazy now to always talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But anyway, there's lots of different forms on Wyckoff accumulation schematic theory. It's not a one size fits all. They don't all perfectly look the same every time, but it's looking for like key signs that are recognizable that we've seen before. That's the way I treat it. As with the altcoin market, it's incredibly similar to the same Wyckoff accumulation schematic that we actually had down in here, right? And so we noticed that once we got back in here, we had to work out some areas in here. As we still maintained our lows, as we've still been maintaining our lows in here, just still in the struggle zone to work our way out. But in these last couple of days, we did get real close to that 200-day moving average. So I'll be keeping my eye on that throughout the weekend. The thing that would make me concerned about the accumulation is if we start seeing Ethereum get down in here into the 12s again, the 1200s, or if we saw the altcoin market get down here into like the 460s, 470s, 470 billion. Preferably, I'd actually like to see us not go below 515. I'll actually start getting worried if we do go below 515, but I will get tremendously worried if we start getting down in here, that we're suddenly not looking like Wyckoff accumulation anymore and something else is at play. So that's kind of where my mind is. That's where like my invalidations of worry would start to come to say, you know what, this thing's not looking like this anymore. If we should go take out that low over there at 512, and especially if we really start getting some momentum and heading down here, it would start getting pretty sketchy. But so far, so good. And I'm going to guess that we'll hold these levels just because we've done such a good job with our low still being set there in June of last year. And I don't think we actually have any historical data of a low being set and then taking out that low again after that much time had elapsed. I don't think there's ever been a time before where you've gone 8 months of holding a low and that not being the bottom in the altcoin market. There was a time period right here back in 2014, but Bitcoin hadn't bottomed yet. And this one was 4 months before a new low had been set. But we saw stuff like that happen here too. We saw that back in 2018 where, yeah, same thing. About 4 months had elapsed and then it broke. But never been a time period where you've held a price for 8 months and then it would go take it out. So should the floor drop out from the altcoin market, that would be the first time ever that a floor held for 8 months and then a new low got set. That's never happened before. Another reason to be a little bit more optimistic. Otherwise, as we head into the weekend, the old classic 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 comes in for the win, and the anatomy of the trading range says the same thing. Things I'll be keeping my eyes peeled on are the altcoin market, see if the bigger money can sniff out the bullishness in the market, and if we can continue this movement of green, even though Bitcoin is lackluster. And well, for those who watch markets in the morning, we finished the day green over here in the Dow. And for all the weird action we had throughout the week, the Dow ends up closing 5 points below for the week. So no signals of insanity from the stock market as we head into the weekend. But all right, guys, that's going to be it for this one. I hope that you all have a wonderful weekend. It's a late Friday afternoon video release. Had a lot of fun doing markets in the morning with you guys. I think Wednesdays have become like a fun thing for us now. I don't really have any fluff for you today because I'm getting this out so late. I'll just share this video that I showed over there on Twitter. This is what the 75-gallon fish tank looks like. All the fish were kind of pooled up in one area. I was like, ooh, let me get a shot of that real quick. That tank has been crazy. I've been dealing with a parasite that infected all of my tanks. I had several fish die. As you can see, I'm gaining a lot of fish, but it was very unexpected, and it's been a huge nightmare for me for the last 2 weeks. But I think finally it's under control. One of the tanks has a little bit of an ammonia spike, so I'm having to put prime in it every other day and keep doing water changes in that one. But otherwise, things are going well. Things are steadying out over there. I think I mentioned it on here. I played in another drum concert recently. Now we're going to kind of pick up a new set list starting this weekend. But all right, let's get to the weekend. Congratulations, we all made it. Friday is here. I want to thank you so much for watching. Thank you for tuning into the channel. Thank you for watching all the markets in the mornings and hanging out with me. I've had a great time doing that. Otherwise, I will catch you guys on Monday. So that's it. Thanks for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you could be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.